Alright, so I made a video for Calabash, and he made another follow-up video which basically said that my claim was that the nails were falsing. That's not my claim. And I guess I would say it's my fault for not explaining it clearly, but allow me to go about it a different way. So, 2 iron nails, one of them elevated. There's a low conductor in there. I don't have a gold coin. But then again, those aren't the same nails either, so different targets, doesn't matter. This principle holds true across all mass targets, not just those specific gold coins. But anyway, that's a low conductor. It has 1 elevated nail and 1 non-elevated nail. We have XP Deus II, default fast program, hits it. And it's reporting target ID of 5. Now, Tennessee Sharpshooter and Calabash both said that the ID doesn't always correlate to the internal analysis. Like, it may be giving it a higher target ID and it's not displaying it. They're absolutely right on that. I totally agree. It's actually calculating the target ID like thousands of times per second, and it kind of it can't give you 1,000 numbers, so it has to average them together. That's basically what all detectors do. Equinox does it a little differently, but that's a different question. Different video. Point is, it's unmasking, right? Yeah, how could you argue with that? Take it out. No more unmasking. So clearly it's hitting the target, right? How can you possibly argue with that logic? Let me see if I can get it right back the way it was. It was kind of at this particular angle, and I want to keep it, yeah, as close as is possible. Just make sure. Yeah. Still getting it, right? Let me turn this one off. And I agree. I actually do agree that it is unmasking. All right, so start with the Equinox 800. We're going to start into factory default. I'll lower the sensitivity to make it stable. 15 tends to do the trick. Remove the field 1. That's the mode I like to use. It honestly doesn't matter. This works in every mode. So default settings. Let's turn on iron volume. Nothing on the default settings. No matter how I swing. It's getting a little bit from this leg over here, but we'll ignore that. Nothing. Alright, so any Equinox user then knows go into here and increase recovery speed. See if that does anything. Now, still totally masked. And we know that Deus II hits this. So you might then think, oh, well, let's lower the iron bias. Let's lower the iron bias. Let's lower the iron bias. And you'll see that it's at FE of 0 already. But what if we go to F2 and we'll lower that to 0? Any difference? No. Nothing. So, Calabashes of the world, and others, honestly, I haven't seen anybody who I think actually knows how to use Equinox 800 in iron, if I'm being totally honest. But everybody else who uses Equinox 800 would be like, well, that's it. The Deus II unmasks better. It can hit that. Equinox cannot. Some people might say, oh, well, go use Goldfield or whatever. No, I'm not going to screw with that shit. So what do? This is it, right? This is proof that the Deus II unmasks better, right? There's nowhere to go on here. Well, what if I told you I know how to do something that the so-called experts on the Equinox 800 do not know how to do because of my so-called book learning smarts that has no application to metal detecting and it doesn't work in real life or whatever. But they won't ever even think to do this. So if you want to know my secret to unmasking with the Equinox 800, subscribe and maybe I'll tell you. But for now I'm going to blur out these settings. But I want to show you that I can do something that other people cannot. So I'm going to put a bunch of buttons to obscure what I'm doing so now you can't tell. I'm probably going to blur it or block it out. So I've changed something. I won't tell you what. It's hitting it now. I will say the pitch audio does a better job at this. I'll give that advantage to the D2. I think it does a better job. But I can still unmask a target that Calabash can't. And just to prove, that this isn't a false, we will remove the target. I'm getting a little bit of falsing over here, that's from the table. Nothing. Put it back in. Oh, I will say, I think the D2 does a slightly better job at this. Paints a better audio picture. See some wide sweeps. Definitely hits it better one way than the other. But it's getting it. And now, let's go back to the factory default. We are now back in field 1. Increase recovery speed. FE2 of 0. This is maxed out. Iron volume on. Doesn't really get it. You're gonna get it to false from some weird angles, but. Oh wait, actually I forgot to lower the sensitivity. It's producing EMI. Alright, now it's stable. So, default field 1 can't hit it when all you have in your repertoire is to change the recovery speed and the iron bias. Now, Calabash was kind of mean to me, so I'm going to be mean here and say that he doesn't understand how a detector discriminates. So he doesn't know how to use all of the settings in conjunction to achieve your goal, because he can't conceptualize what's going on in this. He doesn't know how the detector works. You can't make this change that I can make. And just to show you one more time, I'm going to go back in. I'm going to do my magical unmasking settings that I'm not going to share. Now let's see. I still give the edge to the Deus II, but don't think for a moment that Calabash knows how to use the Equinox 800 to its full potential either. And once again, see? Proof. Equinox 800 can unmask better, just as good as the Deus II, if you know how to use it. Follow me if you want to learn this secret. All right, so obviously I had to put some camera cuts in there. So some people are going to claim that, you know, I don't know, doing something deceptive. So I'm actually going to explain how I accomplish this so people at home can reproduce it and see it for themselves. So when I say Calabash, and this is exactly what he's saying about me, he's saying that I don't know how a detector discriminates, except I do. I can actually do all the math and physics behind it. But you don't need to know the math and physics behind it to understand this concept. But basically, the discrimination, the point is, by default, the discrimination on the XP Deus II is a little more aggressive, which makes it unmask better, but comes with more false positives. Whereas the Minelab likes to make their detectors very not prone to falsing, which creates a better user experience for most people, because most people don't want to dig iron. So, but point is, you can match those settings, and that's what Calabash doesn't do, or doesn't know how to do, or doesn't think to do it. I'm not sure which, but I can, and then I can put the Equinox in equivalent settings as the XP Deus II, and it approaches it in performance. I will give the edge to the Deus II. Like, the pitch audio is more well suited for this particular demonstration, and you know, those fringe target unmasking in general. My claim isn't actually that the Equinox unmasks better than the Deus II. It's more that you can actually push a lot more out of the Equinox 800 than I've ever seen him do, for whatever reason. And then he goes on to this, say that like, oh, you know, not every 7 through 9 is an iron target. And he's correct. Not every 7 through 9 is an iron target, just as not every -1 and -2 on the Equinox is an iron target, believe it or not. So I'm going to put up a graph. All right, so I'm going to draw a graph to illustrate a point here. Basically, this is going to be in the conductivity domain, which basically means the y-axis is conductivity, and sort of the x-axis is this spatial axis, like as you swing over a target. It'll make more sense, just trust me on this. So on the Equinox 800, in general, below 0 is iron, and in general on the XP Deus II, below 10 is iron. Now, these lines are blurry. It's not a hard line in the sand. And I will say, and they talk about, and Calabash says that, oh, it's set at 6.8 by the factory for a reason. And he's right. The engineers absolutely do know what they're doing. And a majority of iron will fall below 6.8, but not all of it. As I showed in my prior video, there's tons of nails that come up between 7 and 10, and there's also mass targets that appear there. So the way the pitch audio works in the fast program is your discrimination is a tone break. You can raise or lower that value. At default, it's set at 6.8. And it's set at 6.8, and I would say by default it's set at 6.8, and in general, about 95% of iron targets fall below that. So it is, you know, as they say, the XP team knows what they're doing, and they did set it correctly. However, that doesn't really paint the full picture here. Allow me to illustrate. So my argument basically is that by default, the Equinox has this discriminating line set higher. And so in this situation, what we're seeing looks a little bit like this. If we look at this picture, this is like how the detector reads the conductivity as you're sweeping over this configuration where there's 2 nails next to a mass coin. It calls the nails, let's say, somewhere between a 1 and a 4 on the Deus II. But it gives the coin an ID of 8 or above 7. Point is, when you exceed the 6.8 line, or wherever you have that set, it'll call this, it'll make a non-ferrous tone. So because the conductivity momentarily exceeds the discrimination threshold, it makes a non-ferrous tone. As you can see, the green shaded part, the signal exceeds the discrimination. But that's kind of the point, is that the discrimination is set more aggressively on the XP Deus II. I think correctly. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they set it wrong. I'm saying they've set it at a better spot than the Equinox 800 is set. But you can also then go to the Equinox 800 and lower that line as well. But as I showed in my prior video, there's some nails, some iron objects that produce false positives. They just have a target ID of greater than 6.8, so they produce a non-ferrous tone, despite being a ferrous object. So you'll notice that if we lower this line, so you'll see that as we lower the discrimination, we start to get more false positives. So then you think, well, why is the Equinox all the way up here at 0 or the equivalent of 10? But then you think, well, why can't I lower the Equinox down? And the truth is you can, but Calabash never does. It's not in his repertoire for some reason. So when he asked me like, oh, well, what discrimination setting do you use it at? And do you think 6.8 is wrong or bad? It's no, you got to adjust it to your situation, your environment, what you're going after, stuff like that. All I'm saying is by default, the XP Deus II is set more aggressively and will false more because of that than the Equinox. However, you can make the Equinox just as aggressive in its discrimination, but I've never seen Calabash do that once in a separation test. Never once, never has he mentioned it, never has he tried it. I've never seen him try it once. I've never seen him use it in the field. So quite frankly, I don't think he knows how to use the Equinox 800 because I can unmask in that situation when he can't. He doesn't, he reaches that brick wall after he's, raised the recovery speed and lowered the iron bias and says, well, what do we do now? I know what to do. And that's precisely what I did in this demonstration. That's the part that I'm blurring out, is I'm lowering that line on the Equinox down to the point where the masked coin comes through, but not the nails. So he says I don't understand discrimination and how it works on a detector, but using discrimination, I can accomplish something that he can't, proving that I actually understand something about it that he doesn't. At the end of the day, I can unmask a situation that he cannot. And he says that I don't understand discrimination, yet I'm able to use it to my advantage to accomplish my goal in a way that he has never demonstrated before. So in summary, what I'm doing on the Equinox 800 is I'm lowering that line to a commensurate value of the Deus II. And then they actually unmask pretty similarly. I still give a slight edge to the Deus II. It produces a better tone, let's be honest. It edges out the Equinox slightly here. But I can still unmask when Calabash can't. I guess and he says that my understanding of discrimination has no impact in the real world, yet I can produce real world results with my understanding. And then he starts leaving comments saying that like, oh, I've swung the Deus II more than you have. I don't really want to get into a pissing competition of like, oh no, I've dug more than you've dug, blah, blah, blah. It's dumb. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in taking a unique science-based approach to metal detecting that will help you find more targets. And I've just proven it works. I'm not going to engage with these people anymore. I'm going to do my own thing, and I'm going to commit to keeping my channel positive because I don't actually enjoy this argument. I enjoy debate. Like feel free to point out if I'm doing something wrong. If you can point out something that I'm doing wrong, I would love that because then I'm going to improve. But I'm just going to block him and his entourage because like, look at the silly comments that they come at me with. Wow, you obviously have not dug coins and nails come. Wow, you obviously have not dug coins and nails come out of the hole with it. I challenge you to bury some nails around a coin and see if the machine will hit it. It will. I think you need to educate yourself. What? Bury some nails around a coin and see if the machine will hit it. It will. Well, how fucking scientific. I don't even know how to respond to this nonsense. So I'm just, if you're going to reply and have like, you need to educate yourself, blah, 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 like Calabash loves to say. They all love to say this, that I need to educate myself. But, okay, I can produce results that you guys can't. That's the end of the story. That's a fact. So I'm sure Calabash will make one more video misrepresenting what I said and call me stupid and say that he's owned the Deus II. He seems to think that because he got the detector first that he's the most experienced at it because he's had it the longest. So, but I won't be replying to him. I won't be replying to his entourage. I do metal detecting for fun, and quite frankly, it isn't really fun to do this. It isn't fun to go back and forth and be like, no, you're stupid. No, you're stupider. It's so dumb. It is so dumb. And I don't really have any appetite for it. I can get sucked into it, and I have been sucked into it, but we're not going to do that anymore. So I hope you'll join me, and maybe we can learn something together, and maybe you'll learn something that you won't see on these other people's channels who are self-declared experts.